So to create this kind of animation where the drink is in color, we actually see the drink going up the straw, and that's through an animation. That's not actually the drink going up through the straw. And then the boy appears in color before the background. It's actually a simple sort of mask effect, mask animation. But first we have to make that selection of the cup. So let me duplicate this middle layer. Let me rename this cup. The middle one will be boy, and then the last one's background. So with the cup selected, let me delete the Rotobrush tool to start from scratch. With the Rotobrush tool selected, double click on this layer. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit so I can get a little bit more close to my cup. Go back to the very start of this composition, and then just make this selection of the cup, and we'll do the straw as well. Get in here between the fingers, and as you see, when I do this, because the color of the boy's skin and the drink is more similar than compared to like his shirt and the background, a lot of his hand and arm gets selected. So I'm just going to option click to delete those parts of the selection. One other thing you can do before you start making all of your selections is play around with these settings right here. If I know that I'm going to add more feathering, I might want to increase my feathering now or shift the edge now so I know when I'm making these selections what it's actually going to look like. Another tricky spot was this logo right here next to his fingers. Because the lighting isn't perfect, we're getting a lot of these colors mixed together. So you have to go in, and when I was actually editing this commercial or this graphic for the commercial, it took me hours going frame by frame to make sure that it's perfect. Because even as I'm clicking there, it's a little difficult getting his finger right there. So I'm going to go through frame by frame. I encourage you to do the same. Make your selections. I'm just going to do it for the first 21 frames or so, and then we're going to meet up and we're going to add that animation. All right, this is by no means perfect, but let's go back to our composition. And now if I turn off the boy, you can see that we have our drink roughly selected. So to create that sort of animated straw drink going up the straw effect, I just used a simple mask animation. So I took my rectangle tool, I made a selection with the cup selected around the entire cup, and then I went into our mask path and I set a keyframe for this right here as our final spot. And then I went forward in time, or earlier, and I moved this path down like so. Once that renders out, you can see that now this part is deleted. And if I turn back off the background, you'll see what is actually happening. So the mask is moving up, and so is our drink. And it takes a little while for the render to catch up. And let me just add just a little bit of feathering just so it's not this hard line moving up. And so that's a cool way that I decided to make the animated drink go up the straw, because at this point when it goes to the top, let me press U to bring up my keyframes, I want the saturation of the boy to start expanding. I was having some trouble with adding a mask animation to the boy, which is basically what I did. And sometimes when I have trouble, I think what will solve this? Maybe a pre-composition will. Because sometimes when you add multiple effects, such as the Rotobrush tool and the mask tool, it doesn't work perfectly. And so what I'm going to do is actually pre-compose the boy. So make sure that the boy is on, and then pre-compose, right click, pre-compose. I'll just call this boy. And now if I solo this layer, it's still just the selection of the boy. But what I want to do is take our ellipse tool, create a little circle around where the straw is, go under our mask properties, and set a keyframe for mask expansion here. And actually, I'm going to decrease this to -10 until what's inside disappears. I'm shrinking the mask. So actually a little bit further, -15. Still see a little bit right there. So that works. And then I'll go forward in time and then expand this mask. So it goes from his mouth basically all the way, and it doesn't have to go as fast. So I think I can decrease the pixels add some feathering. So now I have this animation from negative 15 pixels to 872. So let's turn off the soloing. So now we can see what is happening. We've got the cup in color. We've got the boy fading on. It's really a lot faster than what I did in the actual ad. Then we'll just animate the saturation on this background layer. So what I'll actually do is I realize that I can't animate saturation. This is one of those instances where I don't have a stopwatch icon next to saturation. What I can do is just fade on and off this layer. So what I'll do is just press T to bring up opacity, set a keyframe, go forward in time, and drop the opacity to 0. Of course, that gets rid of the black and white version. So what I'll have to do is actually duplicate this layer, take the bottom layer, leave it at 100%, delete our hue saturation. So now it's kind of subtle, but when this top layer right here fades off, this little animation right here, you can see the background layer stays in color. So now this layer appears from the background. Wow. So I know this is kind of a short and condensed version of the actual effect that I did for the commercial, but hopefully by now you get the process, you understand what I was doing, you understand that you can work with both masks and RotoBrush together. Sometimes it gets a little wonky, so you have to use things like pre-compositions, make sure your selections are done properly. You got to spend a lot of time tweaking. I can see, his finger right here is selected, so I would have to go back in, make sure his finger isn't selected, make sure this full cup is selected, all of the juice you can see clearly. But these are the real world skills that you're learning that you can apply today. You can go out today, you can start practicing with this by yourself, and you can go out to people and say, hey, this is what I can do in After Effects. And if you can create animations like this, you can get a job with your skills. Thanks so much for watching this section. If you have any questions about this or anything else related to the RotoBrush, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you in another lesson.